Freaking out, man. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is Gianluca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
Here we go, guys and girls. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on K-Talks 1340 AM and all United States to the FM network. Another Sunday, another show. I tell you, last Sunday was kind of a very interesting show. Every show I try to bring you real facts. Probably things that normally in mainstream media you not have going to have a chance to listen. But I think they are really important because it comes down to the principles of freedom. What really is going on in this country. Sometimes, you need to go to local issues that probably they're not even that local anymore, but they like to keep them under the blankets, okay, under cover. For example, what happened in Oregon, in this sort of what they call the standoff at Burns, the wildlife refuge, that's something that should make us completely, probably just people like us that we are into this type of information, the patriot movements, whatever you want to call it, but this is supposed to be a mainstream topic. Because we're talking about many issues that are very fundamental. It is beyond, if you believe in, let's say, property rights or what type of, how much, land the federal government can control or not. This is about also due process. This is also about the freedom of speech and, of course, our Bill of Rights. That's why I said this is supposed to be a topic that any one of us, regarding our different political views, we should all be interested. Last Sunday, I had Mr. John Ritzmeier, that, of course, we had incredible information, not only sharing what happened to him, but also some details, what was going on really at the wildlife refuge in Burns, Oregon, during this sort of peaceful occupation. There was even real occupation. My opinion was just like a peaceful protest. But the point is, what really happened, more important, what's happening now, it is what the judicial system is doing. Not just to the people that they are right now rotting in prison, waiting for trial, because the sad story is that we talk already about it. Everybody deserves a due process, and especially when we know all these people never had really any criminal record before. They were not really any harmed person. They were not really anybody was hurt, and still they've been treated like worst of the worst criminals, not even having a basic right to bail, themselves out. No, they can't even post bail. They need to rot there till the end of their day before trial. So that's very sad. But now the worst part is coming out when we have a judge who's trying to impose a complete censorship on the freedom of the press of any one of us. At this point, there is a specific person, a man who's covering this event very thoroughly, very, very carefully, very professionally. I've been reading his blogs, and he always trying to go out and find the sources. Doesn't just bring the hot air. So I think it's really vital what he's doing to bring some others, beyond what the official mainstream media say. And at the same time, now, when we're talking about informants, federal informants, I think we have the right to know who they are, these people, because also we can see now how this event what really happened in Burns, Oregon, where we know that most of the people at this refuge, they were informants, and they were instigating and setting people up. We have the right to know. So anyway, the federal judge, seems like he doesn't like the fact that now free individuals can exercise the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. I have the pleasure and the honor to have with me Mr. Gary Hunt from California, who is the mastermind and the author of these Chronicles, the Chronicles of Burns. Let me call Gary. Gary, are you there?
Yes.
Nice to talk to you again. And please introduce yourself briefly. I know you've been doing this sort of journalistic work for a very long time, but tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I started writing a print newspaper
a semi-monthly newspaper called Outpost of Freedom back in February 1993. At the end of February, I received a phone call from a guy in Texas and asking me if I knew what was going on in Waco, Texas. So on March 5th, I arrived in Waco, Texas, expecting to spend 3 or 4 days there and see this thing concluded. It ended up staying nearly 2 months. And while there, I watched the federal government murder. Regardless of what CNN or any of the mainstream media in this country told you, I watched the federal government murder over 80 men, women, and children when they burned the building down. And the government did start the fires. The evidence wasn't allowed in court.
Wow.
But they used incendiary devices, and that just outraged me.
Yeah. I was in Italy at the time, and I tell you, after when I came here, I started to learn about this. I was really shocked to think that they could get away with murder like they did, and that wasn't just the first time. After, of course, you have a Randy Weaver situation, and they used to repeat itself even in a smaller scale, but it still was a crime, in my opinion. Listen, you have, what is the name of your website, please?
It's Outpost, OUTPOST, -of-freedom.com. And the Burns Chronicles, just add a /blog to the end of that.
Perfect. I think you've been doing a very incredible job since the beginning, covering with facts, names, episodes. I mean, all documented, all the things that were going on in Burns, Oregon. Now, out of the blue, correct me if I'm wrong, I think yesterday or today, anyway, before Sunday, of course, Sunday the show is recorded, but the point is you received this week a court order from whom exactly?
Well, it began last Thursday, a week ago today, when I received the FBI hand-delivered to me a letter ordering me to cease and desist publishing, for want of a better term, I'll use the term prohibited material on the website. And
prohibited.
Then, so I wrote an article. Somebody was aware that some friends of mine were aware that I'd been served, but I wasn't. I don't go out with a story until I've got the complete details, or at least in this case, segments of details that come together neatly. So, which is why I've written the Freedom of the Press series, which at this point includes the statement and 4 numbered articles and 1 unnumbered article, so a total of 7 articles on it. But it leaked out that I had received the letter, and so I had to make the statement, which was the first one. And then the government's activity after that, when I didn't comply, I think it was on a Monday that they filed some paperwork asking the court to enjoin me, and so every time the court does something, I write an article in response to the court. Now, it's kind of interesting because the observations of people with legal knowledge have looked at this, and they see the court acting in the courtroom and staying within the rules of the court, but not within the law by any means. But I'm fighting this without going to court, by using the court of public opinion and writing these articles about it. And it's I hate to use the term viral, but I don't know how else to explain it, because you've seen it on Facebook that it's gone crazy. I mean, people are sharing and sharing and sharing, and they're downloading the articles because they contain prohibited material, and I'll get into that in a minute. But people are making PDFs of them. They're circulating. There's a lady from, I think it was Sweden, that's putting it on her website, and she's going to do a YouTube on it. So interestingly, the reaction of the people has been phenomenal. I can't believe what has happened. But to put it in an interesting perspective, I wrote an article a while back called "Civil Disobedience or Civil Defiance." Well, the first act of civil defiance was in Washington, D.C. when they closed the World War II memorial.
Yes.
And veterans had flown to D.C. to see that. So the first act of civil defiance that as far as my definition of it, was when they picked those barricades up and carried them all the way to the White House and threw them against the fence.
You remember
When
that,
you walk
yeah.
down the street with the sign, that's civil disobedience. You might get arrested, but it's a minor thing.
Yeah.
But they actually stole government property. They did return it at the White House, but it was a more defiant act
Yes.
than
Yes.
civil disobedience.
Listen,
The next act
yeah,
of
go
civil
ahead.
defiance
Yes.
was obviously the Bundy Ranch, where they stood firm and said, "No, you're not going to take Mr. Cliven Bundy's cattle. You have no right to." And so that was an expansion of the concept of civil defiance.
Yes.
Then we come to Burns, Oregon, where the initiative was actually taken by primarily Ryan Payne and Ammon Bundy to occupy the Mahar National Wildlife Refuge, which is public land. And really, they weren't breaking any posted laws. There were no laws against guns in the building. It's public land. They have hunting on the land at times, but it was way more aggressive than just getting the cattle returned, what I called the unrustling on April 12th, 2014.
Yes.
And I did cover that back then from a distance. But Ryan Payne's a friend of mine. We spent 10 days together here in my office preparing a Committee of Safety PowerPoint presentation that was presented to the people of Harney County, and they created a Committee of Safety as a result of that PowerPoint. And Ryan Payne's good presentation of the information. And, I was in touch with Ryan through this whole thing, but
How's
when
it doing? How's it doing? I know he was hit by a bullet at least. And
no.
was it
There was
him?
confusion that first day, and I thought it was Ryan Payne too.
Okay,
They
tell
said
me.
Ryan was hit by a bullet. Now,
No.
there was a shot, probably a 40 millimeter foam bullet, non-lethal, was fired at the truck and apparently either hit the back of the truck or the mirror by Ryan. Later, when the FBI shot into Lavoy Finicum's truck, a piece of shrapnel or perhaps a whole bullet,
Yeah.
probably not directly, probably indirectly, because if it was a direct hit, it would have gone through his shoulder. But
Yeah.
he's the one that still has, and he refused to allow them to remove the bullet, thinking that it might disappear, and it is evidence, and so he's going to retain it in his body until the appropriate time to have it extracted.
Wow.
Say in conjunction with the investigation of the two FBI agents that fired at the truck prior to the shooting of Lavoy Finicum, placed their brass up and never reported that they had fired shots at that incident, in violation of policy, laws, and everything else. But that investigation was left. Oregon State Police had no choice but to leave that investigation to the FBI, and that investigation's been going on almost a year now. So
Yeah.
I think it'll probably go on for 7 or 8 more years, and then they'll find there's no fault when nobody cares anymore. But that's exactly what happened. OSP did their investigation, came up with their results within days.
Yes.
And
I have a question for you. I mean, what is so dangerous that you are somehow publishing on your blog, according to the judge?
There is discovery, and back in March there was a protective order on the discovery saying that it only goes to the I'm doing recall now, I'm not going to go into my notes, this is casual, but it applied to the attorneys, the attorney staff, people assisting the attorney, the attorney investigators, and the defendants. It was directed at those people and said, you cannot disseminate this information. Well, I received the information and through a circuitous course, so that, quite frankly, I don't know where it came from. But it was given to me and under certain conditions, and that conditions be that I not disseminate, but I was free to excerpt from the documents. I was also asked to destroy the thumb drive and the envelope that it came in.
Wow.
So I complied, and I have continued to comply with the conditions upon which it was provided to me.
And also, you have also the right to keep your sources secret. I mean, this is pretty much a basic situation that belongs to a free press. I mean,
I don't need a secret, because if I don't know, I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
that's even better, and that's why
true.
I choose.
Yeah.
Now, over the last 24 years since I've been reporting, quite often I've received classified information. For example, when I think it was the first Apache shot down in I think it was Yugoslavia. One of those wars we had over there, and we sent a
Kosovo?
bunch of Hueys over, and they
Yeah.
kept coming up with excuses. But I found out through sources and received pictures of the first Apache went down. Now the government, if I recall the story, the government claimed that it hit a high power line and burst into flames and fell to the ground. Well, the pictures show that that's not the case. And again, through the source, I found out that the tail section was known to fall off the first versions of the Apaches, and the reason they were most of the others were delayed in delivery was they had to be retrofit to strengthen the bond between the tail section, where the tail rotor is, and the aircraft itself. So the pictures I have show that it came down with the main rotor spinning. It gouged the dirt in an arc, and the tail section is bent over to the side. So it didn't come down in flames. The pictures show that it was not on fire. That it was a failure of the equipment that brought the aircraft down. And so I published those. And over the years, quite often, because of, I guess, my respectability and my willingness to protect my sources, and like I say, I prefer not to know them quite often.
Yeah.
It's easier that I continue to receive information through various sources. I received, for example, at Waco, I received the list on one day only, but the list of all the agents in town, the motels they were staying in, what their names were, and how the motel bill was being paid.
Wow.
That's the government doesn't like this stuff out, and I was questioned by the FBI when I was working in Phoenix once. Over, where'd you get that list? And I told them, I guess our intelligence is as good as yours.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is
Patriot intelligence community.
Yeah, listen, this is very important. I think this is a very important job you're doing to give us at least the story that normally we never be able to listen or to know through the regular media. Now, specifically, must be something that probably the federal government doesn't want us to know. What is you know what? I have the right to ask you. You have, of course, the right to tell me if you want or not. But at this point, this is called for me. I don't care about the judge, because the judge didn't speak to me. I'm here asking questions, and it's up to you to answer. At that point, you don't even need to say the questions, because I can go to your website, and I think people already did download a lot of these files, and they're already out there. I mean, now they can shut your website down, but
no, don't. Let me correct that.
Tell me.
The files that I received are not downloadable. They have not been put online. They are not going to be disseminated.
By your news.
That
I'm
was
talking
my
about
understanding.
No,
now,
I'm-
what has happened
Yeah, your
is in the
articles.
series where I've outed the informants,
yeah.
about half of them contain the text extracted by OCR, optical character recognition. I have extracted all the text out of those documents and posted it there to show exactly what was said in the reports. Now, to me, that excerpting, not disseminating the documents with any other information on them, fully satisfies the limitations, and later on we'll talk about that. Fully satisfies the requirements of the imposition. The only thing is I got them.
Yes.
But I'm excerpting, not disseminating. The original order says shall not be disseminated. In
No, I
fact, on the
understand.
bottom left corner of every document, it says not to be disseminated by court order. And the first time I used those documents, when I outed Alan Varner, a.k.a. Wolf, I made a statement that this is on the bottom left. First, I'm not disseminating, I'm excerpting. And second, I'm not subject to that court's jurisdiction. Therefore, I'm not subject to the court's order.
Yes, and that's what I meant. I mean, you bring out your articles, your chronicles, and the chronicles contains information that is convalidated by the source that you have. You do not disclose the document that they're supposed not to be disclosed, but everything you write because you have a foundation of facts. That's what I'm trying to say. At that point, your articles, I mean, whatever you already said, I don't think can gonna be ever be stopped because it's already out there. And probably that's for me the most important thing. Now people may say, you know what, after all, the judge or whatever, the judge at this point, he doesn't want you to say anything anymore, what I understand. Because what is exactly their problem? You don't disclose the official documents. You just disclose the information, the news. What do they want you to do? To shut down everything? Or what is exactly their problem?
Well, let's look at the difference between dissemination and excerpting. There's a difference. You know, words in our language have meanings, and those meanings are significant, and we need to understand that. So when they say dissemination, I looked up the definition of dissemination, and it does. What I'm doing does not fall within that category. Excerpting is a totally different process by definition. Now, the judge chose to use the word dissemination. Not my fault, not my doing. And now she's trying, most recently, she's trying to change, well, she has actually changed the wording of that protective order, what it was called back in March. It's, she filed a supplement along with the order against me. I'm changing the wording of the protective order that was issued in March. Now, 9 months later, she's changed the wording of that. Now, interestingly, the wording is so broad now, it was narrow back then, it's so broad now that if you read, say, Burns Chronicles 43, Alan Varner, you saw that information, you are in violation of the protective order and subject to contempt of court.
Wow.
You are. Not me. I mean, all these people that have shared this, everybody, according to that order, is now, that has read, passed on, or in any way else dealt with that. Now, if you just saw it on Facebook, it don't count there because you have to go to the blog or you have to have received an email with that document in it. So if you've not read those words that are in the prohibited material, you're okay. But if you've read them, boy, you're in trouble. And
let me read.
I think the government, U.S. Marshal Service is going to be extremely busy for the next 20 years trying to round up all those people.
I mean, let me read, be sure that I got it down right. I'm going right now to outpost-of-freedom.com.
/blog.
/blog. I'm here right now, and I'm going to start to read everything I can.
Okay, now, well, if you're going to look at the freedom of speech articles, they're the last 6 or 7 articles I published.
Yes, I was.
So they're right at the top there.
Yes,
but you would start down at the bottom one called statement.
Okay, now I'm going to read them all. I want to be sure everybody has the chance to read them, because what I really find disgusting, and this is of course me talking, how really this judge think that just because she has some special, I don't know, power in her court can pretty much determine what we American people can read or cannot read. At the same time, completely also stop what is the flow of information. Because I tell you, we have the right to know what's going on, what happened there, especially when we know that there is a lot of things that they don't really are not clear. I mean, we have also, my opinion was what Lavoie happened to Lavoie Finicum. There was really an assassination, or at least something that any one of us, as a civilians, as a regular citizen, would have done even half of what they'd done. They would already been rotting in jail. There was completely an abuse of power. And doesn't belong to any also protocols, to any type of law enforcement that respect the basic due process. That wasn't about due process. That was about an ambush in the middle of America, about a person that was trying just to drive from point A to point B. They really wanted to arrest him. They had too many other chances. We want to know where are these people who plotted this, and really also I think it's important. We need to know all these informants. Why? Because when people start to realize that half of the people at the Burns refuge, they were informants, even more than them. I mean,
about 30%, because the average was 30 to 40 adult males. viable people,
Yeah.
but the informants were 9 on the refuge and 6 outside.
Wow, that's
So
huge.
there were a total of 15 informants,
Wow.
but only 9 went to the refuge. But let me make a more significant point.
Yes, please.
The government, the protective order was instituted because if the informants were exposed, the order actually says that that would be create a risk of harm to the informants. Okay, so the first informant exposed in September was Mark McConnell, but he was exposed by the government. Mr. Gabriel, in questioning OSP officer Beckhart, said, and was there an informant? I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the wording in front of me. Was there an informant that you knew of? And he said, yes. Was that Mark McConnell? Yes. So the government, who's accusing me of creating the risk of harm to these people, outed the first guy. I didn't out anybody until late in October. Now, the second one, at great risk, volunteered to she made 4 or 5 phone calls to the defense attorneys trying to tell her story, and finally somebody had time and listened, and so Terry Linnell voluntarily came forward and said, I was an informant and I'm willing to testify. So they asked her some questions, realized her testimony might be beneficial for the defense, so she testified. The government didn't want her to testify.
Yeah.
They didn't call Mark McConnell either, even though they exposed him.
Yes, I mean,
But
exactly.
but-
They already were exposed. You didn't go and somehow dig them yourself. They already exposed themselves. So already were public.
Right, and the next one, through the diligence of some of the defense teams, they tracked down Fabio Menaggio,
Yes.
a.k.a. John Kilman. You know him, Luca.
Oh, yeah, very well. And we talk also over the phone about him. Go ahead, please. Yes.
So he was outed by the diligence of the part of the defense team. Now, it was also in late October that I think it was after Fabio that I wrote the next one where I outed Alan Varner. Now, I'd known Alan from the Casey Massey Camp Lone Star days down in Texas a couple of years ago, because I'd contacted him as a witness to some events down there when I was doing the research for the articles that I wrote regarding Camp Lone Star as the series, but Kevin Casey Massey. And he seemed like a nice guy. He was very cooperative. But and then Burns Chronicles number 7, What is Brandon Curtis? An article I wrote fairly early on, shortly after I got back from Burns. Alan Varner actually stood up for me in the Silver Spur motel parking lot. It seems that Brandon Curtis didn't like something I had written in an article that suggested that the people that were close enough to help those people still at the refuge, which ended up being the final 5, didn't respond timely to go down and resecure the refuge. And I said they were cowards. So he came up and said, he had 4 goons with him, and these guys are in their late 20s, early 30s, and some of them pretty beefy. And I was 69 years old at the time, and they're trying to get me Brandon's trying to get me in a fight in the parking lot.
Wow.
And he said, "You called me a coward." I said, "No, your actions made you a coward."
Yeah.
And I didn't back down from him, but he got to the point that I've got a 4-door pickup, and I was packing up to leave, and I was trying to put stuff in the back seat. So I opened the door, put some stuff in, went back to the motel room to get some more, and he stood when I was in this time putting stuff in, he got in the V there, so that I had to turn sideways to get by him, but I wasn't going to provoke anything.
At least somebody has to, first of all, talking about coward, I don't know.
Well, wait, let me finish this. Now,
Right.
Alan Varner then was in a motel room there. He had left the refuge, and he had been at the refuge almost the entire time.
Yeah.
And he stood up and said, "Leave him alone." So I didn't really feel threatened. I figured I could avoid it, but it was kind of comforting to have somebody stand with me. And that was Alan Varner.
Yeah.
And when I found out he was an informant, emotionally, it was very difficult
Yeah.
for me to expose the guy.
Yeah.
But that was the first one I exposed, and it was based upon the information that was in now the forms we're talking about, the ones the government are concerned about, are called Form 1023, 1023. What they are is a CHS handler's report or something like that. CHS is a confidential human source or informant, but not an agent employee. So when you see CHS, these are the informants.
Yeah.
And when I read that, there were certain people he contacted. I used deductive reasoning to develop who these people are. For example, 3 people were appointed the leaders of 3 militia groups, Ryan Payne, John Ritzheimer, and CHS. So I called John Ritzheimer and said, who were the 3 people that were in charge of the first 3 militia groups? And he said, well, Ryan and I and Alan Varner, or Wolf, he called him. Mm-hmm. And, well, that cinches it. But there were 2 or 3 other things in his report that I could tie directly to Wolf. And so once I was satisfied that it was Wolf, and believe me, I am absolutely sure when I publish these, I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So I published that, and I called Wolf, and, that's not true. I wasn't an informant, but just the way he acted and everything. And then he hung up on me, and then he called me back and tried to talk me out of putting the report out, and but I did anyway, regardless of my emotional sympathy for him, and respect for him. That's all that had to be put aside. As time went on, I found out which of the set of records applied to Mark McConnell, and I published them. Even though the government outed him, I wanted people to know what he was reporting. Terry Linnell, I put her report out there as well, but that was with her consent because she had contacted me before she testified, gave me a statement that I was to publish after she testified, and after she got out of court, she called me, and I published that report. But I've been very thorough in all this. But now what's more important in this, though, is the fact that the government is using this risk of harm to hide these people. But what was demonstrated is they put out the first one, creating risk of harm to McConnell, and the other 2, one who came forward voluntarily and one who was diligently tracked down, ended up being exculpatory witnesses. The jury saw this, and it was to the benefit of the defendants. Now, why doesn't the government want those people out there? Because it might screw up their case.
Exactly.
So they're keeping exculpatory, and exculpatory, for those that don't understand it, means evidence that might prove your innocence.
Exactly. And this is the most important thing. We want to know the truth. We want to know that if people really committed a crime, they deserve what they deserve. But if they were innocent, they must have the chance to prove their innocency. You say something important for me. You put yourself and your integrity as a journalist before even your personal relationship or emotional relationship with this informant. And I tell you, I have something similar. Even, of course, with Mr. Fabio Minoggio, a man that probably we had a lot of time together. I cooked for him. We shot together. We went to train together. A lot of things that I don't want to go in personal. And then, of course, I always had some sort of reserve in my mind. And then when I found the confirmation of all my suspicions, I say, you know what? Doesn't matter. More than ever, I have that type of responsibility now to let everybody know who is this guy. Regardless that, we may be maybe... I don't call the word friends. I'm sorry. We are not friends when you do something like that. And I told them, on the air, you have the end of the day, beside what these people are rotting in jail, there is a man that he didn't have a chance even to see that judge and the jury. It's called Lavoi Finicum. And indirectly or directly, you were part of that situation. And for me, that's really when I draw the line. There is a person that is gone, and it's not right. That's not right the way it went down. So, Mr. Fabio Minoggio, I'm trying to call him, by the way. I really would like to have him on the show. He promised me that if he had a clearance from his superiors or his lawyers, he would be here. But his phone is down, and his Facebook seems like it's not working anymore. Did you have any other news about Fabio Minoggio, Mr. Kilman?
No, I haven't. He wouldn't answer his phone. It was still ringing. I think it went to... I don't remember what happened with it. But, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to track him down. when I expose somebody, I try and give them the opportunity to make statements. I want to be fair to them if they have something to say. So I passed on what Alan Varner said in that article. I passed on what Will Coleman said, which wasn't very much. It was kind of a, who are you? And I told him I'm Gary Hunt, Outpost of Freedom, and I'm doing a report on your events, your activities down in Burns, Oregon. And I wanted to click. The phone hung up. So I do try and give people the opportunity to it's fair to let them say their say, but nobody's really wanted to say their say.
Now,
except Varner.
The last thing before I let you go.
Wait. Let me get one thing, though.
Go ahead.
We were talking about, the witnesses. Now, the order was to protect the, avoid risk of harm to the witnesses and the defendants. Those were the two human identifications in there, witnesses and the defendants. So whether they testify or not, that order applied to witnesses because they're protected. Nobody else is. Only witnesses and defendants that might talk to the government.
Yeah.
My Constitution, Article 6, the Sixth Amendment, that in criminal prosecutions, you have the right to be confronted with a witness against him.
Yes.
Against you.
Yes.
So these guys aren't allowed because when they get the redacted reports, they've got the same thing that I had. Who are these people?
Yeah. Well, this is like belongs. It's
so
very
they
weird.
can't call them as a witness because their witness is protected, but their witness is unidentified. And to me, that's an absurd abuse of the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution that was put there for a reason, and that's to protect us from unfair prosecution, or should I say persecution, by the government. And so my stand in this is to protect that Sixth Amendment right for them to meet their accusers.
Yes. Now, this is very important. Otherwise, anybody can hide behind the curtain and say, there is somebody here said that you're guilty, but let me see who is. Let me face my accuser. It is a basic right since the Magna Carta. We have that type of opportunity. The right is not an opportunity. Now, question, what are you going? Did you write back to the judge about their demand?
I don't write to the judge. I'm airing my case in the court of public opinion. So it simply goes out. It does not go to the judge. Well, let me not say that. I found out through sources that all the attorneys in the attorney's office that are involved in this case, Billy J. Williams, Gabriel Holsinger, I can't remember the other ones, and even Judge Anna Brown are reading my stuff. Not that they like it, but if you look at the sequence of the government's orders or court paperwork dealing with this, the one that they put out yesterday very definitely was a reaction to what I've gone on the public to the public with, because two things that were very significant. It admitted that she may not have jurisdiction in this matter, and it might have to go to a court of competent jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And I've said, you're in Oregon, I'm in California, you're in the Oregon district.
Exactly.
And I'm in the Northern California district, so you don't have any jurisdiction down here.
Exactly. That's another point I was going to ask you. How can she tell you what you can say here in California? They're in California,
Well, it's rather problematic. So she even said in this last order, and had a footnote on it that said that it will have to go to court of competent jurisdiction, which means she doesn't have any authority over me, and nor does the order she put out, because if she doesn't have jurisdiction, that order is moot.
Yes.
M-O-O-T, moot. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Now, the other issue, the point that I've been making all along, is the fact that the way the original order was written, which I've discussed, I was not in those that were ordered not to disseminate the information, even though I'm not disseminating it because that could track back, if they ever could track back how I got it. They may have disseminated by giving it to me, but they didn't disseminate it. And disseminate has rather a broadcast. Yeah. And it didn't. It came through a very thin line to arrive in my lap. So I don't think it even compromises, from the way it's written, I don't think it even compromises the circuitous route that it came to me on to begin with. However, that argument has not been given to the court. It's only gone out in my articles. So in this order also, she wrote the supplement that I mentioned that makes you as guilty as me. Because she understood by reading my articles that the long arm, what I call the long arm of the order, does not reach me. So she had to rewrite to supplement that order from March so that that long arm of the order could reach me. But it still doesn't, because we still have the jurisdictional problem.
At least all I know that I really enjoy your writing here, and I'm right now one more time. By the way, I will post the link from lovegunsfreedom.com directly to the blog section called, of course, the Chronicles, the Burns Chronicles, because there are like exactly 53 articles here, okay? Very well detailed, with sources, or at least with facts, and of course there are a lot of interesting things that probably we never had a chance to know. And at that point, my dear listeners, this is beyond, if you believe or not, that the Bundys and the people in Burns, Oregon, they were right or wrong. This is way beyond that point. This is about right now if we still have freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And now we are like back to the time of kings and lords, when a person, like for example a judge, just because she has a little bit of a magic, dress or suit, and she thinks she has a hammer, that she can make noise on their table, she can tell you American, wherever you are, what you can read, what you cannot read, and more important, what you can share. We still have freedom of speech in my book. Let's use it all the way. That's my point. So please, go to, of course, to the main website, outpost-of-freedom.com. You will find the blogs there. To make it simple, I will put a link directly on the homepage of lovegunsfreedom.com, and at that point you can read everything, and at that point you make up your mind, and then you tell me if this judge is right or wrong. I want to give you the floor to close. Whatever you want to say, Gary, you got 3 minutes.
Well, people have said that they are when this first came out, people were saying they were violating my rights, Gary Hunt's rights, and I had to correct them, because what they are violating is the reason for the First Amendment. Freedom of speech is one thing, but freedom of press is probably more significant, and has been throughout the history of this country, especially prior to the Revolutionary War. The freedom of the press is your right to know, not mine, but your right to know. So what is being violated is not me. What is being violated is your right to know when the government tries to shut up, as Lucas said, a reporter that is giving you factual information. It's documented. It's documented to the extent that I can, that I've explained where the documents came from, what they are, what they say on them, and then I excerpt from them. And that's all given so that I'm not just making this up.
Exactly.
And so it's your rights being violated, not mine. But I do appreciate the people that have come in support of the position that I find myself in.
And please, people, when you have this link on from the website, you're on Facebook, share it. And, this is the best way we can give them the middle finger and show them that we are not afraid. We are not living in Italy. We are not living in China. We're not living in some other countries that there is no Bill of Rights. We have Bill of Rights, but it's going to be alive only if we exercise our rights. Otherwise, it's just nothing, a waste of paper, as somebody said. We're going to be here and we'll make it alive. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate what you're doing, and please keep us posted if there is any other type of upgrade. In case I don't hear any more from you, I will try Guantanamo or maybe some other, interesting, exotic location. Okay? But I'm sure you're going to be okay.
I hope not. I don't smoke cigars, so I don't think I want to go that way.
All right.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to your listeners, Luca.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, guys, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. A little break, and we go back, and then we have, of course, more exciting news, and more important, we have other great information to share. Do not go away.
It is time. Get your Arizona Concealed Carry Permit now with Arizona Concealed Carry Permit by Zanna Enterprises, LLC. Become a more responsible and educated gun owner. Carry legally concealed in 35 states. Carry permitted in restaurants where alcohol is served. Learn where and how you can legally carry a firearm in Arizona. Learn where you can use deadly force. When can you display your gun or not for self-defense? Learn how to deal with law enforcement while carrying a firearm. Learn how to be aware of your surroundings and how to avoid a confrontation. Buy your gun without waiting for a background check. Get your Arizona concealed carry permit now. Go to www.azccw.us. Go to www.azccw.us. Free for single mothers and people with disabilities.
Here we go, we are back on the air. You're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom. We'll look at Zanna on K-Talks 1340 AM and on United States to the FM network. Well, it was so important, the interview that we just had a few minutes ago with Gary Hunt. I tell you, I find very disturbing what's going on with this judge. Try to suppress the freedom of the press of this independent journalist. Why so important? Because I think, this is something that somehow this type of behavior belongs to a third world country, or at least some sort of a banana republic. I mean, we are in America after all. We're supposed to have, and we have, in my opinion, the freedom of speech and, of course, freedom of press. And when we have a government who's trying to limit the information that we, the people, we have the right to know, it's very disturbing. And especially think in this case, after you study the situation, after you read the articles and the blogs of Gary Hunt, you realize that it's not somehow divulging information about the original source or the original documents, like the WikiLeaks, by the way, has been doing. And that's great for me. I think WikiLeaks has been doing a great job in that area. But regardless, it's just using these documents to corroborate his articles. And that's something we have the right to know, especially when it's true. And why this is so important also? Because the fact that these government informants, that they are a very crucial stage, or at least a crucial element for the case against these people rotting in jail right now, for the Bundy situation, and also, of course, more important, for the Burns, Oregon situation. They have the right to face their accusers. Now, the precedent that we have here, they try to create, that these informants, they need to stay secret. Their name must be sealed. That's completely against any principles expressed in our laws, and more important, in our Bill of Rights. So that's disturbing. That's disturbing. So we have the right to know this information. All I'm saying, please go to Gary's Hunt website. I will post also the link on today's lovegunsfreedom.com. Click there. Share this information. Inform yourself. As I said, regardless if you believe that the occupiers for the Oregon's burn situation, they were in the right or not. This is about due process. That's the bottom line I'm trying to say. Because today can happen to them, tomorrow can happen to you. You have a different belief, a different cause, doesn't matter. You still have the right to face your accusers. We still have the right to have freedom of press, regardless we agree or not. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Anyway, meanwhile, we have this situation with the Trump elections, okay? I'm telling you, this is like almost out of a book of some sort of, spy movie. And the sad thing that it's all real. There is a huge build-up of NATO forces, U.S. forces at the borders with Russia in Poland and other European countries in East Europe. This is very sad because what really we are pushing, we are provoking anyway some sort of a confrontation with Russia. I mean, Obama is provoking. At the same time, there is a big question, like they have these supposed alleged elements or proofs that Russia influenced the elections, just revealing the truth about the record of all the things, or at least part of the things that Hillary Clinton and the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, has been doing. As I said, we don't really have any proof about that. And I'm not even a Trumpy. I prefer Trump, of course, among anybody out there, but I know that Trump has some limitations. So I'm not here even as a party member because I have no parties. I just believe that so far, that's the best guy we have. Is it perfect? No. We will see. We will judge him pretty soon. But right now, regardless, the guy won the election, and now they want to blame it on Russia. Guess what? As I said before, probably a few weeks ago, even if Russia was responsible, really behind in sharing disinformation about Hillary Clinton, guess what? Anybody who somehow, let's say, shares some tips about some alleged criminals or a criminal, it should be rewarded. Russia should get a medal, okay? So that's my point I'm trying to say here. So I don't know. We will see pretty soon. I know there is a lot of things may happen between here and next week. We will have this election inauguration. I pray it is going to be somehow peaceful. I know a lot of people, they are using completely just their, I don't know, not even their hormones, just their stupidity. I mean, how can they judge Trump when Trump it doesn't have any type of political record? But meanwhile, they were all happy in supporting Hillary Clinton, where we know what type of damages she's done. Just with their, especially the Democrats, they supposedly are for peace, supposedly against the war. Look at this warmonger of Hillary Clinton. We have enough records to say, wait a second, and especially all these Hollywood stars. Are you completely out of your mind? You are disgusting hypocrites. That's what you are. And I'm not even here saying because I'm on the other side. I have no side but the truth. I have no party allegiance. I am independent. So the sad thing here, everybody's ready to stone and to completely put on the cross Donald Trump, when so far, you like him or not, he doesn't have really any record about what is done because he's never been a politician. But meanwhile, we have enough record to say, wait a second, Obama, you dump more bombs, double the numbers of bombs and missiles, in the foreign, let's say, conflicts. They are not even wars, more than Bush. And where are all these Democrats? All silent, beside few exceptions, of course. So that's what I'm trying to say. It is very sad, because I almost feel like these people, they are completely under a spell. I mean, there is not even anymore any logic here. I mean, look at these people going crazy. There's a guy on Facebook, on video. If Trump builds this wall, he's going to cut off his penis. I mean, are you insane? I mean, really, are you out of your mind, okay? Seriously. I mean, this is like hysteria, completely hysteria. That's all I'm saying. But I just hope that somehow we will be able to at least give Trump a chance. Hey, we gave Obama 8 years, and look at the results we have. Pure hell. I think Trump deserves a chance to at least see what he can do. And as I said, we may agree or not with everything, but so far he is much better off than any other options right there. We have much more options. And by the way, in my opinion, as I am a conservative, libertarian oriented, okay? I tell you, this guy is not even really a conservative. This guy is more of a let's say, nationalist / socialist, because after all, the intervention of government in many aspects of life that I believe should have no business. But still, if you're a Democrat, you should love Trump. If you believe in blue-collar jobs, this guy is doing more than anybody else out there. For sure, he's trying to stop all these corporatism, let's say, globalist agendas like the free trade agendas. They are not about free trade. They are just about corporate takeover of nations. Okay, I mean, I don't believe Trump has the right to interfere with the personal business of a company. He can give his opinion, but that's it. The company should be free to do whatever they want, but at the same time, yes, Congress can influence with taxation things. The problem with the free trade that we have so far, they're not free at all. They're just unfair trades. America has been penalized, while other nations, they've been given the benefits to somehow use our country as a dump area. They can dump their product for cheap, and they don't have to pay the tariffs that we pay when we go overseas. So that's the point. But at the same time, I say Trump maybe not be perfect, but at least he seems to be generally against globalism. And I think that's something we need to look into that. Now, talking about globalists, let's listen to this piece of crap, Mr. Obama, that I refuse to call him president.
Where our mouths are. And we can only realize the promise of this institution's founding,
United Nations,
to replace the ravages of war with cooperation if powerful nations, like my own, accept constraints. Sometimes I'm criticized in my own country for professing a belief in international norms and multilateral institutions, but I am convinced that in the long run, giving up some freedom of action, not giving up our ability to protect ourselves or pursue our core interests, but binding ourselves to international rules over the long term enhances our security.
Okay, that was Obama, one of his last speech at the United Nations, pretty much to submit to global government, to world government. I mean, I do not want to be under international law. I do not want to somehow be a subject of international law. Our law of the land is supposed to be our constitution and the American laws. What it's doing is try to pretty much put claim one more time that is an internationalist, a globalist. And why I'm so, let's say, attached to our laws and to be an American? Because I know very well the America is unique. Our Constitution is unique. Our Bill of Rights is unique. Our Declaration of Independence is unique. The experiment that our framers created is unique. There is no other country in the world that you can compare to that. I'm not going to give up my Bill of Rights to some international court or to some international law. I'm not going to give up my First Amendment just to please somebody else. Or maybe my Second Amendment. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's why I believe Trump, at least on this, seems generally to be against globalism. We will see pretty soon. All I can do is pray. I pray that somehow it's going to be peace, and even the other side somehow will not create an excuse for a crisis, for a potential martial law scenario, because that's really what could happen. Now, before we go ahead, ready for our number 2, we got an interesting interview for the second hour. Great news about the Arizona Concealed Carry class that I held in Kingman. Great class. Another one coming in Lake Havasu City next Sunday. And also, I want to remind you, I have a Zanna coffee, straight shot espresso, just came in fresh from the roastery. Great, ready to go. Go to www.zannacoffee.com. You can order the 3 bags, and you have a special deal. Great shipping, great coffee, and you support the show. I really appreciate your help. This is the way we can support freedom of speech on the air. Okay, and don't forget, please, to support also K-Talks, because I tell you, the fact that I'm still on the air, pretty amazing. I can talk about on this show, on this airwaves, something that normally any other commercial radio station would never let me do. So please appreciate that. Okay, don't go away. Ready for our number 2. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna.
In this world where everything seems to be going sideways, when you need things set straight, Zanna Coffee Straight Shot Espresso. Start your day with a bang. The best organic and GMO-free coffee beans from around the world to amplify your senses and enhance love for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Zanna Coffee brings you happiness in every cup. Fair trade, certified, sustainable, organic coffee. That means we do not use slaves. Free Zanna songs with every coffee bag. Find Zanna Coffee at www.zannacoffee.com www.zannacoffee.com. Don't be cheap, you deserve the best. Get Zanna Coffee at www.zannacoffee.com.